The best-selling console of all time. Over 155 million units sold since its release in the year 2000. The surreal David Lynch advertisements, the black and electric blue color palette, the simple angular PS2 logo. There were a lot of great things about the original PlayStation, but Sony found their groove with the PS2, and chances were if you didn't own a PS2, either your friend had one or you just hadn't got around to getting one yet. Welcome to part 2 of my favourite games of a generation, as we explore my top 5 games on the PS2. Starting off, Time Splitters 2. This game was everything. A campaign across time and space with different characters, storylines and mission types. Time Splitters 2 did an impeccable job of bringing different gaming tropes together in a brilliant FPS package that delivered in every way. You had your dystopian future, your old school western, the 1920s gangster backdrop and the Cold War spy thriller. The story was somewhat coherent and it did its best to bring everything together as it went along, but for where it failed narratively, it more than made up for in gameplay and level of fun. This game took things to a completely different level with the minigames and multiplayer. It was hands down the reason for my never-ending love of first-person shooters. The amount of different game modes and unlockables you earned by playing were phenomenal. Dozens of characters with different skins and statistics, an insane map creator which I was never competent enough to take full advantage of, and one of the best split-screen experiences I ever had on console. If you never had a chance to play any of the Time Splitters games, it definitely hasn't aged well, so I wouldn't recommend going out and finding a copy and jumping in now. Shooters have evolved so much over the last 18 years, but as an example of how good things were in 2002, Time Splitters 2 remains on top. My second choice goes to Resident Evil 4. Growing up, I barely played Resident Evil and only really experienced the series through watching my dad play the original games on the PS1. Of course I dabbled and remember giving the original game a go, but my first true experience with the series came with RE4's release on PS2. The gameplay style change probably had a big thing to do with it, and the fact it wasn't as scary was easily a big part of why I managed to play through the entire thing. It had a fantastic story, taking things away from the cityscapes and zombies of old and instead venturing into the countryside with rogue villagers and priests coming for you instead. QuickTime events and breaking boxes, green herbs and what are you buying? Resident Evil 4 was, and still is, a phenomenal game, and one I have visited multiple times since release. RE4 ushered in the new era of the series, and while the 5th installment may have gone a little too far in the action direction, and the series ultimately needed to be reined back in with the newer releases, the introduction of Las Plagas and evolution of Leon Kennedy is a worthy addition to any top 5 list of PS2 games. Grand Theft Auto is as synonymous with gaming as the word PlayStation itself. 3 main titles released on PS2, and while San Andreas provided the largest map and list of features, Vice City remains one of my favorites. The 1980s Miami Vice coked up Tommy Vercetti experience provided one of the best backdrops, soundtracks, and main story the series has ever seen. You had planes that actually stayed in the air, plane boats, supercars, and you eventually lived in a goddamn mansion with far too much open space for anyone. Gone were the drab and depressing color palettes of GTA 3, and instead we were given a vibrant, neon-injected 1980s Miami aesthetic. No longer did we have a mute protagonist, no, we had goddamn Ray Liotta pleasuring our ear holes in his neon blue Hawaiian shirt and gold chain. Vice City had everything. You built up a criminal empire, taking down former bosses and friends along the way, and I just couldn't get enough of the experience and cannot wait for the inevitable moment we jump into a Grand Theft Auto set in the 1980s again. Need for Speed Underground, baby! Everyone had this game, everyone knows this game, and everyone knows Lil Jon and the Eastside Boys because of it. Another iconic title that still holds up. Sure, people will say Underground 2 was an improvement in every way, but come on, Underground was the moment EA realized Need for Speed could be more. It could be more than a supercar-fueled race in the countryside. The soundtrack, the cars, the tracks, and customization options, everything here was on point. And the drift mode in particular was where I spent a lot of my time. It's one of the few racing games that kept me coming back, to the point where my friends and I downloaded it again on PC at university just to hold drift competitions and see who was the true drift king. Underground would go on to define a generation of gamers, and it wouldn't surprise me to discover if it had played a big part in a lot of those gamers taking the experience into the real world and building their own boy races. While this isn't the case for myself, Underground was a phenomenal experience and has ingrained itself into the DNA of all future Need for Speed releases. Definitely one of the best arcade races on PS2. The final game on my list goes to Metal Gear Solid 2. Look, it's tough, but I based this list off of games I thoroughly enjoyed on first playthrough, as well as the ones I have revisited over the years. And MGS2 is the Metal Gear game I've played through the most. At the time, the graphics were just mind-blowing. It completely trolled the entire fanbase by having you play as Raiden for almost the entire thing, and it was one hell of a Kojima-filled ride from beginning to end. Yeah, sure, the first game had a lot of political intrigue and plot elements that flew well over my head as a kid, but MGS2 took things to crazy new heights. And the first couple times I finished the game, I had genuinely no idea what the hell was going on. Lali Lule Lo, the Patriot, Solidus Snake? Kojima, what are you doing? Metal Gear Arsenal runs aground in the middle of New York, and the following day everyone's just walking around like it's nothing. There's a goddamn vampire, but he's not a vampire, it's nanomachines. There's a lady who can't be hit by bullets. Nah bro, nanomachines. A pregnant Russian lady dresses up as a cybernetic ninja in her spare time, and Ocelot is slowly becoming Liquid Snake because of an arm transplant. Listen, MGS is a lot of things, but it sure as shit ain't a boring ride. And Metal Gear Solid 2 was and still is a fantastic game. Fingers crossed the original MGS remake rumours that have been popping up lately are true, and we can see the original trilogy in a fresh RTX infused light on PS5. I mean, remakes are all the rage these days. The new Tony Hawk's game is supposedly the best it's been in years. The Crash Bandicoot remake did so well, there's a proper sequel on the way, and while it's a touchy subject since people are out here asking for new ideas and new IPs, but I mean, I'm probably going off topic now, that's an entirely different video in itself. Anyway, those are my top 5. Same as before, let me know down below what your favourite titles are, why my picks are wrong, and if you think you'll be getting a PS5. PS3 is up next, and considering we now know when the PS5 is dropping, I'd better get a wiggle on if I'm going to get both parts out before it drops. That's not to say I managed to get a pre-order for one, since, you know, that went really well. Anyway, stay safe, wash your hands, and have a great day.